Hello and welcome to Insight Germany. My guest today is one of the research group leaders of experimental neurosurgery at the world-famous Charité University Hospital here in Berlin. Luisa Pina is originally from Mexico and came here to Germany at the turn of the millennium. First to the lovely medieval city of Regensburg in Bavaria, and since 2006, she's been here in rough and ready Berlin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for the invitation.
When you arrived in Germany, you were in, as I just said, this beautiful city of Regensburg, which we're going to visit later in the show. I mean, did you think everything in Germany was like a medieval movie set?
Yes, actually, it was strange that I began to work in this small city. It was just by chance. I was in Montreal before, and I was looking for a job, and one of my colleagues told me, he said, why don't you just look at a very good job here, also in Regensburg. They are opening many opportunities for research group leaders. And I have the fortune to start there. Wonderful. I was amazed to see this wonderful city and the buildings and everything. It was like a fairy tale, basically. Yeah. So then it was fantastic to live there. And also the work was incredible, and I was very, very happy there. My boss was supporting me all 100%. And
so why did you come to, as I said, rough and ready Berlin?
Yes,
it's a wonderful town, but it's not quite as pretty.
So originally, I have to say, I love Berlin. I love Regensburg, but I completely fall in love with Berlin. And I came because I got married, actually with a British man, and this British man was already living here in Berlin. That's why I came here. And of course I was, we were getting married, but I was still in Regensburg, and then I was looking for a similar job that I had in Regensburg here, and I have the incredible fortune to be in the Charité. So then I started with the right foot, as we say in Mexico. I started here with a new life and with wonderful work, definitely.
Yeah, now tell us about your work, because when I heard you were coming to the show, it was sort of a neuroscientist. It's quite daunting to me. I know nothing about science. So if you can, for me, and in layman's terms for our audience, tell us what is neuroscience, and especially experimental neurosurgery.
Yes, okay, well, neuroscience is the study of the central nervous system and the nervous system in general. So our brain and the central nervous system and the nervous system in general is this system that allows us to see and to behave and to dream and to do everything that has to be between outside and inside, how to learn and everything. And for me, in experimental neurosurgery, we have, as neurosurgeons, normally treat people with surgery in the brain, for example, to take tumors. But also we do a lot of research on trauma patients and on stroke patients. And all these patients, unfortunately, they have these diseases, and we want to help them to create therapies that are not so aggressive and that can help them to recover. And this is basically what we are doing in at least in experimental neurosurgery and neurology, experimental neurology also.
And how much do you know in that? I heard from a neurologist that we know about 20% of what's going on in the brain, and 80% we really don't know.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes, we are in diapers, as we could say. We
so
are
is it
just
guesswork?
starting. It's a guesswork in some way. I mean, we know many parts of what are the parts of the brain, yeah, and how they connect and etc. But still, we don't know what is this that makes, for example, a degenerative disease like Alzheimer's disease, that you lose your memory first of all, or Parkinson's disease, where you lose neurons that makes you begin to tremble, without any control. And all these degenerative diseases are increasing and increase with age. And we are very interested to know in this side, and we are trying. There are millions of people trying to go into research on that. So neuroscience is about the study of the normal nervous system, but also the diseased nervous.
And it's a big subject, Alzheimer's and dementia and things. We'll talk about that a little more. I do want to know, though, how do you study the human brain in that you can't work with live ones, or can you? I mean, I don't know.
Yes. Well, there are different levels. You can work at the molecular level, and for example, we have the opportunity to have the patients there, and we have, for example, blood samples or urine samples, and we can know some. For example, some markers of disease in the blood or in the urine of these persons, but also we can do live imaging. How is the brain is working, for example, and we have now wonderful machines like magnetic resonance and functional. Magnetic resonance also, and PET scan, that is more positron emission tomographies, and all these make us first not to invade the patient, but also to see what is happening inside the brain meanwhile they are doing certain activities, for example. No? And if these activities are very similar to the normal ones, or they are of a diseased person, how they change, how is the brain changing whenever there is a disease.
Okay. Now, we should explain where my guest works. So there's a museum of medical history within the grounds of the world-famous Charité hospital, and we went there to find out more about this renowned institution. And before we go on, we've got this fascinating book you can see now from the Charité Museum to give away. It is in German, but they've sent us an English supplement here to go with it. It's all about medical history down the ages. So write to us at insight@dw.de, and you could be the lucky one to come out of that. Please include your postal address, of course. What's so special for you about the Charité working there?
Well, incredible, because, you know, I mean, when I was very, very young, when I was around 11 years old, I was reading a book that is about the history of microbes. It's the hunting microbes is one of the names.
When you were 11? You were
11 years old, and then I was fascinated. I was always fascinated by this kind of books, and my father gave me this book, and I was reading about all the people, Robert Koch, and they were discovering all these diseases, Pasteur, Koch, Ehrlich. And then suddenly, I am here in 2006, in front of the first building I was working in. It was Paul Ehrlich building. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? And like 3 or 4 days later, there was a big talk in one of the big buildings in the Charité with, and the name is, there is a Koch Museum because Robert Koch was working there. So then it's fantastic, and say, oh, I'm working here. I am working here. Oh my God, what is this? So for me, working in a place where there are so many Nobel Prize winners, and
7 in all.
Yes, 7 in all. And so you can imagine I was so fortunate to be here, and my colleagues are fantastic. I have wonderful opportunity to have the best of the best students all over the world. No, I have students from America, from the United States, from Mexico, from Turkey, from China, from everybody comes here to study. And of course, I feel really fortunate. So then, what I like from Charité, everything. Yeah.
Well, you talked there about the students. How do they differ? Are they very different from different countries around the world?
Oh, definitely. The approach to science. So you have a certain formality for science, and I am passionate about my work about science, and I like that my students are also passionate about that. But whenever we address a question, I see that our different characteristics, like where is our original country, then this makes a different point of view how how you see a question and how you want to address this question to do experiments. And this is very enriching, especially when we are talking. It's very interesting because I will tell you, for example, one day we were in the microscope. I'm always checking the microscope, and I'm a histologist, so then microscopes for me are the basic instrument. Yeah. And I was with a German student and a Turkish student, and we were looking at some labeled cells, and they look like black background and some lights. And we are used to see these cells labeled, but one of my German students was saying, "Oh yes, this is the labeled cell that is blah blah blah." No, so very scientific, and the other students say, "Oh yes, it looks like a starry night here." So it was so nice because then we began to laugh because this enrich a lot our view of science and our view of how science can be done. Yeah.
That's interesting, but you did say before, you talk about the Nobel Prize winners, I looked up on this, that Germany has won 80 Nobel Prizes. 68 of those are for natural sciences or medicine. You mentioned Koch, Max Planck, Einstein, Röntgen, who invented the X-ray. It goes on and on. Why, I mean, are Germans, or is Germany particularly good at science? And medical things or scientific things?
I think I have the impression that physics, chemistry, and biology or medicine is one of the very basic things here. Like it's very, very strong, and I don't know. I think it's this combination of how the German mentality is. I think is very organized. Is very go to the point. Very like into we have to arrive to a decision and we have to arrive to a goal. I don't want to say that the rest of the world is not like this, because all scientists, we in some way we share this, no? But maybe something to be with how the mentality was developed here for science. I don't know, but I feel this is a very nice.
We've been praising them a lot, and praising the Charité and the facilities and all the medical side of things. We all know the health system here is wonderful, but what are they not good at then in the medical side?
So maybe for me as a patient, sometime I have been not so many times, thanks Lord, that I am not so always a disease or something. But I'm not a patient, but I have the impression that sometimes the personal part is not there. I think in general, medical doctors all over the world, they lose they have to be a little bit cold, because of course it's not possible to do this approach, you know. They have to stay cool, let's say, in order to approach the problem. But I have the impression that, for example, in Mexico and Latin America, doctors are a little bit more personal, and then just to touch your hand can make a difference.
The touchy-feely side.
The touchy-feely, and that I am here to support you, something like this. Here they are more formal, and I say, we are going to do this. I think it's changing, because also in neuroscience is the discoveries that also this personal touch can help a lot. It's like there is a lot of chemistry changing whenever you treat a person in a very, very tender way, or when you are a little bit more distant. So then this is
interesting. Perhaps we'll touch on that again. I want to go back though to Mexico. You sent us some personal photos.
Yes.
It's a very cute photo, if I may say so. And I just wondered, were you thinking, you said just a bit ago, you were reading a book on microbes at the age of 11. How old are you there?
I was 3 years old, and the person that is holding my hand is my father. Yeah. That he was always, I have to say that since then, he was always giving me books. So my relationship with him, it was very, very much about books and how to learn things. And for me, it was very important, his influence on my career also.
And when did it really start, your fascination then with medicine? I mean, at 3, you can't really remember. We can't remember much till we're 4, can we? Also?
You can remember things, yes, but of course it's more difficult with age, of course. Yeah, but I think my fascination. I think since I was like around 5 years old, my father gave me a small toy that was for me fascinating, and this was a microscope. A small microscope.
A toy.
As a toy. And I began to see absolutely everything. I was cutting absolutely everything, leaves and everything, and insects and everything. And I was just fascinated by that. I was 5 years old, and then I asked for another microscope, and it was a little bit bigger. It was still a toy, but it was like... And my father saw that I just wanted to see through the microscope. And that's why I think he also gave me this wonderful book that it was from Paul de Cruyff's Microbe Contours is the name.
Should show a picture of your father.
Oh, yes.
We've got another one later. But,
yes, so then in the central part are my parents. Yes, he's standing up and my mother is there. They just got married at that time. And then the family, also my grandparents and my grandmother in this right side from the part of my mother, and my grandparents from parents of my father.
You know, 3 generations.
Yes,
there.
3.
Any connection to
4
the medical...
generations, because there is one of my cousins that are very.
Are you the only doctor? Oh.
No, there are. I think we have in the family around 5 or 6 doctors in physics or in biology or in chemistry. Yes, but there are some around.
And I should say, you're not a medical doctor. Are you? Because in the English language, anyway, when we say doctor, we immediately think of a
medical doctor,
a chap you go and see about your throat or whatever. But you're a doctor of?
I am a doctor in neuroscience.
Neuroscience.
So originally I studied what is biomedical research. It was a new career in Mexico. And then after that, I did my master's in neuroscience, and then I did my PhD in neuroscience. Mm-hmm. That was back in Mexico.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Let's have a look at my guest's life here in Berlin now. Our Insight reporter, Nora Sinemiliolu, spent a day with her recently.
I lead a neuroscience research group. This work involves developing ideas and proposing questions about how the brain works. In particular, I'm interested in a specific protein important for neuroprotection after injury and how this protein contributes to neural plasticity. Together with my students, we design experiments that allow us to investigate this relationship. I am the doctoral and master's thesis advisor of my students. I love science, I love my work, and I hope my students develop this same passion for science, and in particular for neuroscience. Here, we are in one of the oldest buildings of the Charité, maybe the oldest, 200 or 300 years old. It is fascinating to see all this old furniture. Most is at least 50 years old. This part of the building will be renovated soon. The rooms used to house an endocrinology work group. Now it belongs to the experimental neurosurgery, the department in which I have the very good fortune to work. There is so much history in these walls. Dancing is very important to me. It is, on the one hand, a way of getting some exercise, but also one of my big passions. I'm now getting interested in how dancing, in particular tango, can help patients with Parkinson's disease. Actually, everything that involves learning, like dancing, music, language, is very beneficial in developing the plasticity of the nervous system. Learning new things, in particular dancing, increases the brain's capacity to recover from injury or cope with illness. Meditation has helped me to reduce the high stress levels created by work and everyday life. The time and form of meditation can even contribute to our wellness and a state of happiness. It is one of my aims in my work to bring meditation into neuroscience. Meditation could have beneficial effects on stress and even depression.
And my guest is Luisa Pina from the Charité Hospital, a neuroscientist there. I must ask you about dance straight away and Parkinson's disease. Tell us a little bit more. How can it help people with Parkinson's disease?
Well, first of all, probably I have to tell you what is about brain plasticity. That this is exactly...
That was my next question, by the way, plasticity.
See, plasticity. And then I can tell you why it's so important, this dancing. So plasticity, the brain is adaptable. So it adapts to everything. For example, when you are learning, you are adapting your brain to different inputs, from all the atmosphere that you have and all. But also is adaptable whenever you have an accident, for example. So then this, meaning like the adaptability or plasticity of the brain is quite big. Now, one of the things is that we want to help the brain for this plasticity, because some plasticity has a limit whenever you have an accident, and if the accident is too bad, then the brain has a limit, and we want, as researchers, to help it to improve faster and to recover faster. And it has been done by many other researchers, and now I'm very interested in that. For example, dancing, learning another language, or learning to cook, or learning to knit, or anything that you learn, doesn't matter how old you are. This is very important because it's very, very beneficial for the brain to improve the plasticity. So then you have like a level of plasticity that is higher. If you have that, then your brain is a little bit more protective for diseases. What happened with Parkinson is that there are many cells that are dying, that are dopaminergic cells. I will not go into that, but these cells that have a particular problem, then they make, if you lose these cells, the persons begin to have trembling, and they cannot move, and apparently whenever you dance tango in particular, your balance has to be very good, because you have to balance with the person that you are in front dancing, and you have to be connected. You are first connected by this embrace, but also you have to be coordinated with the music. So all this comes together and helps the brain to learn how to balance also, and how to be a little bit more closer to the other person that is in front of you, and to coordinate your brain with the music and what you have to do with this. This helps. It has been observed that Parkinson's disease patients have a lot of problems with balancing. And this training for tango, particularly for the balance of the tango, the normal tango training, it helps a lot for these patients.
That's sort of a physical thing, dance. What about the psychological thing? I know in the film there, you do yoga, you meditate.
Yes.
You're a scientist, and if I may say, you're different to a lot of scientists, in my opinion. Scientists tend to see everything in black and white, but you seem to have a spiritual side.
Oh, yes. In fact, I think when you begin to do meditation, you begin to go into different levels also, and you begin to understand that this is about energy, and how you can improve this energy in order to help also your brain. I mean, for me, it's not only the stress, but I think whenever even you are sad, because there are many parts of life of everybody that is sad, and this sadness can go away whenever you are doing meditation, and to relieve a lot of pain that you have. This makes me feel that it's not all about this black and white, and I think it's very difficult for many scientists to see that. But I think I'm not the only one. Now I'm going into more spiritual. It's spiritual, but also scientific, because my curiosity about how this meditation is making me change my stress, and how it's making me, for example, when I'm sad or when I have a problem or something, it makes me easier. And this will help the central nerve, my brain, to also relieve and to be more plastic, actually.
This is also connected with this caring and sharing and the
Exactly,
thing.
yes.
So
yes.
certainly they may not be the best at it in Germany, but they're certainly researching it.
Oh, definitely, definitely,
Yeah.
yes.
Very briefly, I read something the other day. I wonder if you can comment on this. That working with false limbs, people who have
Yes.
false limbs from war victims or whatever,
Yes.
and that they now have, it's starting that they can control these limbs by thought process from the brain. Is this really?
Oh, definitely. Actually, there are some researchers already doing a connection between biomechanics, like to have false limbs, and instead of being just something that to support the person, you can really move them.
By thinking?
By thinking.
Ooh, wow.
It's fantastic. Actually, I would tell you that there are some researchers here in Berlin that they are doing, for example, how you can move a car just by thinking. It's fascinating. And this has to be with networks. And networks, our brains are made by networks also. So then this is very, very, very interesting. Artificial intelligence, basically.
I mean, one more. I fell over a couple of years ago and had stitches in my face. And I wanted to know about the connection with anesthesia as well, because that's something that's sort of booming in the scientific field, like neuroscience. When I had stitches in my face, I could feel them stitching, but it didn't hurt.
How is that?
I'm a man, I'm a coward, you know. How come? Come on.
Yes. So the anesthetics normally, so you have different receptors to different, for example, to heat and to pressure and to pain. You have the receptors.
I could feel the pressure,
yes,
but not the pain.
Exactly. And you can feel even the
this is
heat.
neuroscience.
But yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And then it's all about anesthetics, is about pain. How you can reduce the pain. Yes, definitely.
Enough science. Let's go back. Well, go back to your dad. You say so much about your dad here. He was very special to you.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, this is actually the person that influences me more and every day, I would say, yeah, and in my personal life and in my.
And your mum there,
oh, yes, also.
I believe, was called by your sisters and the German.
Yes, by
Why?
her sisters, because she was.
By her sisters, sorry.
By her sisters, sorry. Yes, she has plenty of sisters, and she was very strict. So it was a contrast. I have a wonderful contrast with my parents, because my mother was absolutely super organized, super like 6 o'clock in the morning doing yoga and doing this and that and that. And my father was a little bit more relaxed, but also super worker and very punctual, everything. But he was a little bit more relaxed. He was just enjoying more life, no? And my aunts used to say, "Oh, she's like a German. She's so strict. It's incredible."
He came to Germany, didn't
he? Came to Germany, yes. Unfortunately, not my mother, but my father came to Germany because...
Well, this isn't from Germany,
no,
this picture,
this
but
is
this to do with why he came?
Yes. So he came here to Germany and to many different capitals, like London also, and other capital, main capitals, cities in the world. And he was visiting because he was one of the first, if not the first, I would say it's the first traffic engineer in Mexico. So he dedicated himself to see how to control traffic lights, basically. So what he did is that he came here, and at some point, this is a control in the photo is a control for traffic lights, and he learned here how to semi-computerize these controls that were mechanical before. So people like traffic police, they were coming and they were turning off and on. Yeah. And then suddenly they began to be, this is in the 60s, so then the computerization was not really into
But that. He wasn't bringing this to Germany.
Yes.
Oh, he was?
No, he was from Germany to Mexico. So then they were, yes.
I was going to say, the Germans are normally
good at that sort of thing. He was fascinated by Germans because of this, exactly, because of the computerization of traffic lights. And yes, this is exactly what he brought from Germany. He loved German people, by the way, and when he was here in Berlin and in Munich. Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
As you do.
Yes, as I do, definitely. Yeah. Yes.
Now, I mentioned at the start of the show the city of Regensburg, which is where my guest first worked and when she arrived in Germany. It really is a classic picture postcard town.
The spires of Regensburg's cathedral rise 105 metres above the city. St. Peter's is the central landmark and Bavaria's only Gothic cathedral. Another symbol of Regensburg is the 300-metre-long stone bridge, an architectural masterpiece from the Middle Ages. The bridge builder is himself immortalised here in a stone carving known as the Bridge Man. Remains of the Porta Praetoria, the main city gate, testify to Regensburg's time as a Roman legion camp in the 2nd century AD. Regensburg is one of the oldest cities in Germany. In 2006, the entire old town was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and tourists have since come in their millions, either spending the night or just visiting for the day.
The old buildings and the history interest me the most.
The incomparable atmosphere. This is a medieval city like no other in Germany. We usually just see half-timber houses, but here there are stone buildings several stories high. So on one hand, there's the architectural aspect, and I also find the atmosphere with young people sitting outside almost like Italy.
Another attraction in Regensburg is St. Emmeram Palace, the ancestral home of the princely Thurn and Taxis family. The large ballroom and Princess Theresa's chamber, with its swan bed, are included in the part of the palace open to visitors. Scholars and researchers have access to the court library. Its historical inventory comprises some 100,000 books. Just a few minutes' walk from the palace, there's another interesting sight, Our Lady of the Old Chapel, thought to be the oldest church in Bavaria. After many alterations, in the 18th century, the old chapel was rebuilt in the Bavarian Rococo style we see today. Political centre, trading hub, and World Heritage Site. Regensburg has a rich legacy from many eras.
Yeah, looking at that, how did you ever get any work done?
It's incredible, right? It was so difficult because it's so beautiful, and every single corner you can discover something new, and it's incredible because you can see, if you go walking, you see completely different city. When you do like this, it's a completely different city because you see all these towers and fantastic, the buildings. And
it was, I believe, different in another way too, with working, because you're still in a relatively male-dominated profession. Mm-hmm. Was it very different, Regensburg and Berlin?
Yes. I think in Bavaria, that Regensburg is in Bavaria, and I think they are a little bit more machist. And
macho.
Yes, there's a more macho style and more dominated by men, and it's a quite difficult situation for me. It was a shock because I was in the States and also in Canada and in even Mexico, and I saw more women working there as scientists than when I was in the Faculty of Medicine and in the clinic, university clinic in Regensburg. I was treated wonderfully by my boss, but I saw that the other bosses or other people or other colleagues were kind of not so gentle.
And is that different now in Berlin?
I think so, yes. When I arrived, it was a contrast because many of my colleagues were women. in the same positions that I have. So then it was it was comfort for me, because then I see that there is more equivalent, treated equivalent to men. So yes, it changed, but I think it's changing a lot also in the South, let's say, yes. But it was a contrast at that time.
Now, we have a questionnaire, which you talked about Regensburg in your questionnaire, which is one thing. You also said your favourite place is Mexico Platz. You come from Mexico. But yes, here in Berlin, there is a place called Mexico Platz. And I actually dug out a picture, not of yours. I dug out this picture because just to show the audience, this is the Mexico Platz railway station, isn't it?
Yes, and it was apparently one of the first electrical railway stations here in Germany, and at least in Berlin. And they built this complete Platz, or square, as with this style, this very Art Nouveau style. So all the buildings around it, and I have the fortune to live in one of these buildings. It's fantastic because it's like it's like a dream, and it's Mexico Platz. So a Mexican living in Mexico Platz, yes.
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, but it is quite one of the most beautiful railway stations you would ever see.
Definitely.
Looking at the rest of the questionnaire, you put as the coolest living German. Your professor? Professor
Dirnagel. He is my habilitation mentor. So habilitation is a different degree after you do your PhD. In order to be here in Germany a professor, so it's equivalent to be a full professor. And so in order to be a full professor, you have to pass this kind of another thesis you have to do, is habilitation.
You're actually, if I may interrupt you, you're being very modest, because I looked up habilitation, and habilitation is the highest academic qualification a scholar can achieve.
Yeah.
Respect.
No, not at all. No. Yeah. So my advisor for habilitation is this Professor Dirnagel, and he's a medical doctor, but he's also a PhD, and he is a wonderful character. I have the fortune to be his. He is my advisor, and he guides me. Which are the steps that I have to follow to be successful in my habilitation? And he's a world famous researcher, and on top he's a wonderful guy. Good. Really, like a person. Yeah.
Favorite German song? Do you remember what you put down? This might remind you. Can we hear it?
Definitely, yes. The German anthem is one of my favorites. Yes, I just love it. I don't know, it's something.
You actually have very good taste. It's one of the nicest pieces of music because it's actually written by Haydn.
Yes.
And I believe, does this associate, you're about to become a German?
Yes, I'm expecting in some months, I don't know, months or days or weeks, to have my German passport, I hope. And I'm very happy because this is like in my heart. I feel that I am German. I would like to...
But would you give up your Mexican passport?
Of course not. I would never do that.
So is your heart divided?
Yes, my heart is divided but mixed. And I think it's not a difficult decision. You can love two persons or you can love two nationalities a lot. And in my case, it's definitely German nationality and Mexican. I am very proud of being part of here in Germany, to be here in Germany. But I'm also... my Mexican part is there. These are my roots. Yeah. So then I continue to be that.
And just to finish on, really, you put here under something the Germans do extremely well, their love of nature, their organisational skills, I think we know, and the profundity of their relationships.
Oh, yes. My very, very good friends. I always do this connection with coconuts. How is a German like a coconut? Because sometimes they are very hard to go into, but once you are inside, you have this sweetness of this German friendship. once you are there forever, yeah? And it's so sweet and it's so wonderful. So I love Germans.
I think that is a beautiful way to end. The Germans are like coconuts.
Coconuts, yes.
Luisa Pina, thank you very much for being with us today.
No, thank you for the invitation.
Thank you all for watching. Remember that when you heard it first here, the Germans are like coconuts. Hard on the outside, soft on the inside.
And very sweet.
Yes, and very sweet. Join us for another programme next week at the same time. I'll have another fascinating guest. Goodbye for now. Bye-bye.
Thank you.